Welcome to this special Friends on Demand training. This module will be on a positive support strategy called a visual schedule. Before we start talking about a visual schedule, let's talk about an important concept to understand in order to know why we're using a visual schedule. And that concept is called executive function. The executive function component of your brain is located in your frontal lobes, but consider the following analogy of a musical orchestra. An orchestra is divided into sections that include strings, woodwinds, brass, and percussion, and all have important roles and add something to the overall sound. In the same way, the brain has different parts and functions, all contributing, but adding something different to how we experience the world and interact with it. But there's another part missing, the orchestra conductor. The conductor plays no instruments and adds nothing tangible to the mix, but is nonetheless very important. He or she controls the volume and the tempo, the pitch and the timing, and ensures that all parts of the orchestra are seamlessly working together. So you might think of executive function as it relates to the brain as having a role similar to the conductor of an orchestra. It controls the volume, the tempo, the pitch, and the timing of your students' behaviors and thoughts and emotions. Students with learning disabilities who have autism, Asperger, ADD, ADHD, could be Down syndrome, and some other types of learning disabilities often have challenges in the area of executive function. And because of that, it hinders their ability to stay focused on tasks, to plan and be able to anticipate what's coming next, to follow through and complete tasks, especially tasks that involve multiple steps. It hinders their ability to cope with unstructured situations, to cope with changes in routine, and causes difficulty in regulating emotions. And so it's because of these deficits in executive function that we want to use a visual schedule to help overcome some of these. So why use a visual schedule? Well, I gave you some very good reasons in the previous slide. Let me give you a few more. A visual schedule can help your learner build on a common strength for him or her because of their executive functioning challenges, and that is utilizing a strength that's their visual modality. People who have executive function deficits will probably understand and comprehend more that's communicated in a visual way than auditory. It's not to say that they can't comprehend auditory instructions, but their visual modality is their strength, and a visual schedule taps into that. A visual schedule also improves a person's understanding by providing information in a very structured and sequential way. Another plus of using a visual schedule is it helps your student to function more independently. And for that reason, it helps them to gain confidence and build self-esteem. Again, visual schedule provide information or communicate information in a visual format. Some of that information that's communicated is when events are going to occur, the order that events will occur, when it's time to transition between events, the changes that might occur because something different is happening this evening than what typically happens on a Wednesday life group, let's say. And also when new events might occur. And that's important because, again, with that lack of predictability, when a change occurs or something new occurs that's out of the ordinary, that can increase stress and anxiety, and a visual schedule helps to communicate that information in advance. So visual schedules help to increase predictability. That's very important, and the way that they do that is visually, again, taking advantage of that strong visual modality. A visual schedule can help to establish the concept of when an event or activity is going to be finished. A visual schedule can provide a visual means, again, of being able to anticipate when transitions are going to occur, thus increasing the predictability that I'm going to have to move from point A to point B. A visual schedule increases predictability by helping to establish routines, a sequence of event of what's going to happen. And by doing those things, a visual schedule can help increase predictability and establish set expectations because of the way in which you're communicating this information, which will be better understood by your learner who might have executive functioning challenges. And also, a visual schedule can decrease surprises. Because it increases predictability, it decreases the surprises that might occur because, again, a weakness in executive function doesn't allow me to anticipate what's going to happen. It doesn't allow me to cope very well when situations start to change or when new situations occur. So again, a handful of good uses here for using a visual schedule. Let's talk about how to construct a visual schedule, and the good news is it's a very, very, very easy concept. Whether you're putting together a visual schedule that'll be used for a couple of hours at church or for a half a day at church or for an entire day of church, what you'll want to do is identify the main events that are going to occur in that specific time frame. The next thing is that you want to identify how much information your learner can handle at one time. How much information can your learner handle? If you put pictures of 10 events or activities that are going to occur on one visual schedule, will they be able to assimilate all that information? Or do you need to break it down into small increments? I've had learners that I've worked with where I could only display 3 or 4 or 5 pictures of activities or events at one time. And so this is very individualized and something that you might need to play around with. If you're unsure, as a rule of thumb, I would go with fewer pictures rather than more that are going to be displayed at one time. And we'll see an example in a couple of more slides of what I'm talking about. Still talking about how to construct a visual schedule. You just need to take a digital picture of each event or activity that's going to occur. Take a picture of something that is going to best represent what your learner is going to have to do, what event it is or what activity it is. Then you're going to want to print those pictures out. The next thing that you're going to do is to laminate those pictures. You probably have access to a laminating machine. If you don't, if you go to Office Max or Office Depot or someplace like that, they'll laminate them for you at cost. Then what you're going to want to do is buy some Velcro, and you're going to want to stick a piece of Velcro on the back of each picture. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a second of why you want to do that. But you're going to take a picture that represents your activities, print them out, laminate them, put a piece of Velcro on the back of each picture, and then you're going to want to laminate a cardstock piece of paper, an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, the thicker, more sturdier kind of cardstock type paper. Laminate one of those. Then the next thing that you're going to want to do is to take the pictures and arrange them in the sequential order in which those events or activities are going to occur. Remember, your pictures are representations of an event or an activity. From left to right, just like when you read, from left to right, you want to arrange those pictures in the sequential order of when they're going to occur on top of that cardstock piece of paper. Once you have all of them on there, then what you want to do is attach a piece of Velcro to the cardstock paper just below where the picture is, or those pictures that you have placed in sequential order. In other words, we have to figure out a way to get those pictures to stick to that cardstock paper so that we can use this visual schedule. Well, the way that you do that is you have a piece of Velcro on the back of the picture, a piece of Velcro on the cardstock paper, so that you can press one against the other and it'll actually stick on there. Let's take a look at what that looks like. This is easy stuff, folks. Aren't you glad? This is a whole lot easier than geometry or trigonometry. So here's a picture. There's your laminated cardstock piece of paper. And then over here, here's your Velcro that's stuck to that laminated cardstock. And again, you want to put that Velcro on there because you need something to stick your pictures to. And let's take a look at what that might look like. Here is a finished product of a visual schedule. I have taken pictures. Now this is for younger learners, but these pictures represent activities from left to right on the first row. an activity that will occur at a table where everyone's required to sit. After that, we're going to play on the small indoor jungle gym. And then after that, we're going to go to the sensory room. On that bottom second row, the activity that comes after the sensory room is that we're going to sit down and listen to some music, and then we're going to finish our time frame by playing with the Thomas the Tank Engine set. So these pictures I've taken that I use with my younger learners, that are the pictures that I feel best represent what the actual activity is going to look like, so that my learners can see visually what those represent. I've put 5 pictures on here. With some of my learners, I might only have 3 pictures at one time. I might only have 2 pictures at one time. I could have 4 or 5 pictures at one time. The idea is that I put only the amount of pictures that I can put on there that my learner can comprehend. Each picture represents an activity. They're placed in sequential order from left to right. Then what happens is this. I'm showing this visual schedule to my learner, and I say, okay, it's time to come to the table. We're going to do an art and craft activity, let's say. When that art and craft activity is done, and it is now time to help my learner to predict that it's time to go play on the small indoor jungle gym set, I'm actually going to take that first picture and remove it from my visual schedule. By doing this, it shows my learner what's next, because what's the next picture in that sequence? The indoor jungle gym. So when the indoor jungle gym activity is over and we're going to go ahead and transition over to the sensory room, I'm going to say, all right, partner, we're done playing on the indoor jungle gym. It's time to go to the sensory room. And when the sensory room activity is over and we're going to transition back into our other room to listen to music, I'm going to say, the sensory room time is done. Now we're going to go listen to music. And that's the reason for that Velcro on your cardstock in the back of your picture. You're putting things in sequential order, but as those activities end, you're going to actually remove that picture because it's easier for your learner to understand what's next. And also in the bigger picture, as you can see, as I start to remove pictures, it also gives my learner an understanding of what's left. What is left for this morning, or what's left to do in this hour? How many more things do we have to do? And by removing the pictures, they get a bigger sense of how many remaining activities are left until we're all done and it's time to go home. And I just want to give you a quick look at what some other visual schedules look like that people have actually used. Here's an example here. And then you see one that goes from top to bottom. And the third one down there actually represents a choice. The learner can go choose to play basketball or play on the computer, and that's why those 2 pictures are side to side. And then with older learners that I've worked with, I might use a notebook and put a visual schedule in this format, especially if I'm using a lot of visual schedules. It's going to represent an entire length of a school day, let's say, for example, but maybe it's a full day church event. I might put it in a notebook like this so I can flip from page to page to page. And then here's another example of ones that I've used before where we don't remove the pictures when an activity is done. Again, notice that the paper's laminated, and I'm going to take a marker and just scratch through things. I'm going to line through things as the activities are done. Again, this schedule helps the learners to predict what's going to happen next, and how many things are left to do before my day is done.